Archive Administrator. Historical verification sequence initiated. Reviewing recovered expedition documentation. Primary journal confirmed. Field records confirmed. Archaeological evidence confirmed. Recovery documentation confirmed. Expedition designation. Eastern Survey Expedition. Year of expedition 2573. Mission classification. Frontier Exploration and Archaeological Survey. Destination classification. Unregistered ancient structure. Expedition personnel. 10. Mission authorization. Approve. Archive entry status. Accepted. The following record has been verified as an accurate reconstruction of events. All available evidence has been reviewed. All recovered documentation has been preserved. The individuals recorded within this archive entry are recognized for their contribution to the expansion of human knowledge. Their journey began as an expedition. Their discovery became history. Begin archive extraction.
Recorded by the Infinite Archive. Historical. Reconstruction Division. Failed expedition record. Year 2573. The age of expedition was still young. Humanity had rebuilt itself from the remains of the forgotten world. Across the continents, explorers traveled beyond the boundaries of known civilization, searching for remnants of the ancients. Every journey brought new discoveries. Broken machines, abandoned structures, fragments of a civilization that had once stretched across the entire planet. But every expedition also carried danger. The wilderness had reclaimed the old world. Cities had disappeared beneath forests. Roads had vanished beneath deserts. Knowledge had become scattered across thousands of years of silence. This was the world that faced the Eastern Survey Expedition. 10 explorers were selected for a mission beyond the known frontier. Their destination was a location approximately 430 miles from their settlement. A place mentioned in incomplete records. A place where ancient structures were believed to exist. Their objective was simple: travel to the location, document everything they discovered, recover anything that could increase humanity's understanding of the ancients, then return. The expedition was expected to last several months. The team consisted of 10 specialists. Captain Elias Voss, expedition commander, a veteran explorer responsible for the safety of the team. Torin Hale, cartographer, responsible for mapping the unknown lands they crossed. Dr. Lyra Kalin, historian and researcher of ancient civilizations. Dane Mercer, engineer and specialist in ancient structures. Soren Ash, quartermaster responsible for supply lives and survival planning. Mira Kestrel, naturalist responsible for studying the environments they crossed. Cale Rowan, scout responsible for navigation and reconnaissance. Garrick Stone, security officer responsible for protecting the expedition. Brother Aldrin, official chronicler responsible for recording their journey. And Nessa Vale, the youngest member of the expedition, and an apprentice archivist documenting discoveries for future generations. They departed with confidence. They carried food, water, medical supplies, tools, mapping equipment, everything required for survival beyond the frontier. They understood the dangers. They knew the journey would be difficult, but they believed preparation would be enough. On the morning of their departure, families gathered to watch them leave. The explorers said their farewells. They promised they would return. They believed they were beginning a journey that would make them famous. They believed they were traveling toward a discovery. They did not know they were traveling toward a warning. They did not know their names would become remembered not because of what they found, but because of what happened after they found it. The Eastern Survey Expedition of 2573 had begun. 10 explorers left civilization. None would return. Chapter 2. The Journey Beyond the Frontier. The Eastern Survey Expedition began with a simple objective: reach the location, document what remained, return with knowledge. But the distance between civilization and the unknown was not measured only in miles. The destination was approximately 430 miles from their settlement. A distance that, on an old world map, appeared manageable. But the world of the Second Age was not the world of the ancients. The roads were gone. The cities were silent. The paths that once connected civilizations had been reclaimed by nature. The expedition would travel on foot through forests, open plains, and rocky desert. Every mile would have to be earned. The first days carried a sense of excitement. The forests beyond the settlement were dense and unfamiliar. The expedition followed old trails where they could, but much of the route required creating their own path. Trees that had grown for centuries blocked ancient roads. Streams crossed routes that once carried millions of travelers. The team moved carefully, documenting everything they encountered. They recorded unusual plants, mapped waterways, marked locations that future expeditions could use. They were not simply traveling. They were creating the first records of a forgotten landscape. The forest tested their patience rather than their strength. Progress was slow. Equipment required constant maintenance. Small injuries began to accumulate. Cuts from sharp vegetation, bruises from difficult terrain, a twisted ankle during a steep descent. Nothing serious, nothing that threatened several weeks, the forest gave way to endless plains. The open landscape allowed them to travel farther each day. But the plains brought new challenges. There was little protection from the elements. The sun became their greatest obstacle. Water had to be carefully rationed. Rest had to be planned. The horizon seemed unchanged for days at a time. The explorers learned that empty landscapes could be just as demanding as dangerous ones. The final stage of the journey brought them into rocky desert. The terrain became harsh. Stone replaced soil. Vegetation became scarce. Every source of water became valuable. The expedition relied on careful planning and discipline. Their quartermaster maintained strict records. Every container, every meal, every remaining supply. The success of the mission depended on preparation. Even with careful planning, the journey took its toll. The explorers were tired. Their equipment showed signs of wear. Their bodies carried the evidence of more than a month of travel. But the team remained together. After 113 days of travel, they reached the coordinates recorded in their ancient references. They had crossed forests, they had crossed plains, they had crossed the rocky desert. They had traveled 430 miles beyond the known frontier. And all 10 members of the expedition were still alive. They had achieved what many believed impossible. They had reached the destination. But when they looked across the empty plain before them, they saw no city, no ruins, no remains of an ancient civilization. Only a single hill rising from the landscape. A hill that appeared completely natural. The expedition had completed the hardest part of their journey. They had arrived. They had not yet discovered what they had found. Chapter 3. The door beneath the hill. After 113 days of travel, the Eastern Survey expedition reached its destination. The location matched the ancient records, a vast plain stretching beyond the horizon. A landscape untouched by modern civilization. No roads, no settlements, no visible remains of the ancients. For several hours, the expedition searched the area described in their records. At first, they found nothing. Only wind, stone, and empty land. The team began questioning whether the location was incorrect. Perhaps the records had been damaged over time. Perhaps centuries had changed the landscape beyond recognition. Perhaps whatever they were searching for no longer existed. Then, near the end of the day, they investigated the hill. It stood alone in the middle of the plain. Unlike the natural formations surrounding it, the hill appeared unusually uniform. Its shape was too precise. Its surface showed signs of construction. The expedition established a temporary survey area and began examining the formation. Within hours, they confirmed what they had hoped to find. The hill was not entirely natural. Hidden beneath layers of earth and stone was a structure. A structure built into the side of the hill. A door. A massive hardened door. It was not an entrance designed for a simple building. It had been created with purpose, strength, and permanence. The surface had survived thousands of years of exposure, weather, temperature changes, the slow movement of the earth around it, yet it remained sealed. The expedition studied every detail. There were no visible hinges, no handles, no obvious locking mechanism. Only a smooth surface designed to withstand time itself. Then they discovered the symbol. Near the center of the door was a circular emblem. The markings had been heavily eroded. The passage of countless years had worn away much of the design. Only fragments remained, a pattern, a shape, a symbol from a civilization that had disappeared before any living person could remember. The explorers documented the emblem carefully. Some believed it showed the purpose of the structure. Others believed it was a warning. No interpretation could be confirmed. The expedition established a permanent base camp near the hill. Supplies were organized. Survey equipment was prepared. The team began studying the entrance. At first, they believed the door would open quickly. Perhaps a mechanism was hidden beneath the surface. Perhaps time had simply buried the entrance. But the first attempts revealed the truth. The door was not meant to be opened easily. The structure had been built to remain closed. The expedition had traveled 430 miles to reach it. They had found the entrance to a forgotten place. Now they faced the greatest challenge of the mission: finding a way inside. The explorers had discovered a door, but they had not yet discovered what the door was protecting. Chapter 4. 7 months of stone. The Eastern Survey Expedition had reached the door beneath the hill. But reaching the discovery was only the beginning. The entrance remained sealed. The expedition studied the structure for days, searching for a method that would allow them to enter without damaging what had survived for thousands of years. They examined the surface. They searched for hidden mechanisms. They analyzed every visible detail. But the door gave no answers. Eventually, Captain Elias Voss made the decision that would define the next 7 months. They would excavate around it, slowly, carefully, methodically. The goal was not to destroy the entrance. The goal was to understand it. The first weeks passed with optimism. The team worked in shifts. They removed soil and stone. They documented every discovery. They believed that every layer uncovered brought them closer to the truth. But as the weeks became months, the reality of their situation began to change. The hill was larger than expected. The structure extended deeper into the earth. Progress became slower. The work became harder. The expedition members were no longer explorers moving toward a discovery. They were laborers fighting against time. The environment tested them constantly. The days were hot. The nights were cold. Dust covered everything. Equipment required constant repair. Small injuries became common. Cuts, bruises, strained muscles. Nothing serious enough to stop the mission. But but every injury added to the exhaustion. The greatest challenge was not physical. It was isolation. The settlement they called home was hundreds of miles away. There were no visitors, no messages, no familiar voices. Only the same hill, the same excavation, the same sealed door. As months passed, tensions began to rise. Arguments became more frequent. Small disagreements became larger conflicts. The team members began questioning whether the discovery was worth the cost. They missed their families. They missed ordinary life. They missed the feeling of knowing what tomorrow would bring. Brother Aldrin recorded that the expedition had become a test of patience as much as a test of survival. Yet despite everything, they continued. They had come too far to turn back. Every day brought them closer. Every stone removed revealed more of the forgotten structure. Then, after 7 months of excavation, they reached the final barrier. The remaining rock surrounding the entrance was removed. The sealed doorway was finally exposed. The team gathered together. After months of work, they stood before the entrance they had traveled across the wilderness to find. For a moment, no one moved. They remembered the journey, the forests, the plains, the desert, the injuries, the exhaustion, the sacrifices. Then the final obstruction was removed. The door opened. For the first time in thousands of years, the passage beyond was exposed to the outside world. The expedition had succeeded. They had entered the unknown. They did not yet understand that some things remain sealed. For a reason. Chapter 5. The night before discovery. After 7 months of excavation, the Eastern Survey expedition finally breached the sealed entrance. The impossible had happened. The barrier that had resisted months of effort had finally opened. Beyond the doorway was darkness, a passage untouched by human hands for thousands of years. The expedition members stood at the entrance, looking into a place no living person had ever seen. For a moment, no one moved. They had imagined this moment countless times. They had imagined ancient machines, forgotten knowledge, answers to questions that had remained unanswered for generations. But now that the entrance was open, they understood the importance of patience. Captain Elias Voss made the decision. They would not enter that night. The team was exhausted. Their equipment needed preparation. The first exploration would be conducted carefully, with everyone rested and ready. After 7 months of work, they would not risk everything by rushing into the unknown. The decision was accepted. The expedition stepped away from the entrance. For the first time since arriving at the hill, they allowed themselves to celebrate. The evening meal became a rare moment of relief. The remaining supplies saved for special occasions were brought out. The explorers gathered together outside the ancient doorway. They shared stories of the journey. They remembered the forests where they nearly lost their route, the endless plains where the horizon never seemed to change, the rocky desert that tested their endurance. They laughed about their mistakes. They talked about home. They spoke about the families waiting for their return. For a few hours, they were not exhausted explorers. They were simply 10 people who had accomplished something extraordinary. Dr. Lyra Kalin studied the opening from a distance. She wondered who had built the structure, what purpose it had served, why someone had gone to such lengths to seal it away. Dane Mercer believed the answers were waiting inside. He believed the technology hidden beyond the entrance could change humanity's understanding of the ancients forever. Nessa Vale recorded the moment in her personal journal. She wrote that she could barely sleep because she felt she was standing at the edge of history. The expedition members watched the stars above the plane, the same stars that had watched the builders create the structure, the same stars that had watched the door close, the same stars that had watched thousands of years pass. Now, after all that time, 10 explorers sat beside the entrance. They believed the greatest challenge was behind them. They believed the journey was almost complete. They did not know they had only reached the beginning. At first light, the expedition would enter the facility. They would document everything. They would map the interior. They would uncover the secrets left behind by the ancients. They did not know that the sealed doorway had not been hiding a treasure. It had been hiding a warning. Chapter 6. The Chamber Beneath. At first light, the expedition team entered the structure beneath the hill. For the first time in thousands of years, human footsteps crossed the sealed threshold. Captain Elias Voss entered first. Behind him followed the remaining members of the team. They carried lights, recording equipment, mapping tools, medical supplies, everything required for the first exploration of a forgotten place. The expected answers. Instead, they found silence. The first chamber was enormous, a perfect square carved deep beneath the earth. The ceiling disappeared beyond the reach of their lights. The pitted walls showed a level of construction unlike anything they had encountered before. The room was not a cave. It was not a natural formation. It was a structure built with precision. Across the floor were thousands of objects, machines, containers, broken equipment, fragments of unknown technology. Everything was covered in age. Metal surfaces had corroded. Panels had broken away. Materials had degraded after thousands of years of abandonment. The explorers moved carefully through the chamber. They searched for anything that could reveal the purpose of the facility. But the objects surrounding them were impossible to identify. They could recognize that the equipment had been manufactured. They could recognize that it had been important. But they could not understand what it had done. The ancients had left behind a room filled with machines, and humanity no longer understood any of them. Then the team noticed something else. The air. Inside the chamber was a strange smell. Not the smell of soil, not the smell of decay. Something artificial. A scent unlike anything they had encountered during their journey. The air was But every member of the expedition noticed the same thing: a strange metallic taste, a dry sensation, a feeling that the atmosphere itself was different. Dane Mercer recorded the observation but could not explain it. At the far end of the chamber, the explorers discovered 3 passages. Each hallway descended deeper into the earth. There were no visible signs explaining their purpose. No readable markings, no maps, no indication of where they led. 3 paths into the unknown. The expedition gathered to discuss their options. Captain Voss reminded the team that curiosity could not replace caution. They had spent months reaching this location. They would not lose control now. The facility was larger than expected. They needed information. They needed maps. They needed to understand what they had entered. The decision was made to divide the expedition into 5 two-person teams. 3 exploration teams would investigate the descending tunnels. 1 team would remain in the main chamber to establish a command point. The remaining team would return to the surface to prepare additional supplies. The discovery had changed the mission. This was no longer a brief exploration. The expedition might be staying much longer than planned. The teams prepared their equipment. Lights were activated. Notes were written. The first steps into the tunnels were taken. 3 groups entered the darkness below. 1 remained behind. 1 returned to the surface. None of them understood that the greatest discovery of the expedition would not be what they found. It would be what they accidentally awakened. Chapter 7. The Stone with 3 Triangles. The first exploration of the facility began with cautious optimism. The expedition team had entered a place untouched by humanity for thousands of years. Every corridor, every machine, and every fragment of material had the potential to reveal forgotten knowledge. The expedition divided into teams and began exploring the 3 descending tunnels. The first team traveled deeper into the facility, carefully mapping their route. The passage continued downward for a considerable distance. But beyond the strange atmosphere and aging walls, they discovered very little. There were no functioning machines, no preserved records, and no obvious signs explaining the purpose of the structure. They found only empty corridors filled with rust, debris, and silence. The team returned to the main chamber several hours later. Their report was disappointing. They had found nothing worthy of note. The second exploration team returned shortly afterward. Their findings were almost identical. The tunnel extended deep beneath the surface, and the construction was remarkable. But the contents had been destroyed by time. They reported the same unusual conditions. The deeper they traveled, the stranger the air became. A metallic taste remained in their mouths, and the atmosphere felt dry and unpleasant. Some described it as acidic, but there were no immediate signs of danger, no injuries, and no visible hazards. The explorers assumed the facility was simply another forgotten ruin, a place abandoned long ago. The expedition members gathered in the central chamber and began discussing the final exploration group. Dane Mercer and Torin Hale had entered the 3rd tunnel. Their passage appeared different from the others. It descended more steeply and continued farther beneath the surface. Everyone believed that if anyone found something important, it would be them. Dane was an engineer who understood ancient systems better than anyone on the expedition. Torin specialized in identifying patterns in places where others saw only ruins. The team waited as minutes passed, followed by an hour, and eventually a much longer period of uncertainty. The others began to wonder what they had discovered. Perhaps they had found a larger chamber. Perhaps they had found records. Perhaps they had finally uncovered the purpose of the facility. Then, from the darkness of the tunnel, came the sound of approaching footsteps. Dane Mercer and Torin Hale returned. Both men were unharmed, but their expressions had changed. They carried something carefully wrapped in protective material. Captain Elias Voss immediately approached and asked what they had found. For several moments, neither man answered. Then Dane carefully removed the object. It was a circular plate made of polished granite. Unlike the damaged equipment surrounding it, the stone showed almost no signs of age. At the center of the plate were 3 carved triangles. The design was simple, precise, and intentional. Everyone gathered around as Dr. Lyra Kalin began studying the markings. She examined the angles, the spacing, and the relationship between the 3 shapes. The symbol appeared too carefully designed to be decorative. It had meaning. The team considered several possibilities, including a location marker, a symbol of identity, a representation of a process, or perhaps even a warning. No conclusion could be reached, but everyone agreed on one thing. This object was different. The machines around them had been destroyed by time. This stone had survived. For the first time since entering the facility, the expedition believed they had found something important. They believed they had discovered evidence that the builders of the structure had left behind a message. At the time, the expedition did not understand the meaning of the 3 triangles, the reason the stone had survived, or the true significance of their discovery. They believed they had uncovered a message from the builders, unaware that the object they had recovered was not the symbol of their achievement, but a warning left behind by those who had already discovered the danger beneath the surface. Chapter 8. The first illness. After the first exploration of the facility, Captain Elias Voss made the decision that everyone would return to the surface. The team had gathered valuable information. They had mapped portions of the underground structure. They had recovered an unusual stone artifact. But they had also discovered that the facility was far larger than expected. A longer exploration would require additional supplies. The expedition needed rest. The explorers returned to their surface camp near the hill. The open air felt different after spending hours underground. The wind across the plain, the sunlight above them, the familiar landscape surrounding their camp. After the silence of the facility, the surface felt safe. The team prepared a meal and gathered together. They allowed themselves a moment of relaxation. During the meal, the 3rd exploration team presented their discovery. The circular granite plate. The object was carefully examined by the entire expedition. Dr. Lyra Kalin studied the 3 triangular markings. She recorded every detail: the material, the shape, the precision of the carving. The team discussed what the symbol could mean. Perhaps it was a message. Perhaps it identified the builders. Perhaps it represented something important about the facility. For a short time, the expedition felt successful. After months of travel, 7 months of excavation, and their first day inside the structure, they finally had something they could bring home. Then Dane Mercer became ill. At first, no one understood what was happening. He became quiet. He complained of discomfort. The others believed exhaustion had finally caught up with him. The expedition had endured a difficult journey. They had spent months underground. They had worked beyond normal limits. But within a short time, it became clear this was something different. Dane began violently vomiting. His body shook uncontrollably. He could not find a comfortable position. Before the team could fully understand what was happening, Torin Hale began showing the same symptoms. The 2 explorers who had traveled deepest into the facility were now severely ill. The expedition immediately responded. They checked for injuries. They examined their supplies. They searched for anything that could explain the sudden illness. Nothing made sense. There was no obvious cause. No contaminated food. No visible infection. No explanation. The team moved the 2 explorers away from camp. Near their settlement site was a natural spring and watering hole. A small pool of water surrounded by shade. The location provided cooler temperatures, fresh air, and a place where the sick members could rest. The expedition hoped recovery would come with time. They believed exhaustion was the cause. They believed rest would help. They believed the problem would pass. The first day ended with no improvement. The second day brought the same result. The illness continued. The explorers became weaker. The vomiting worsened. The team began to understand that this was no ordinary sickness. Then came the first sign that changed everything. Blood. The expedition members had crossed hundreds of miles. They had survived the wilderness. They had opened a door that had remained sealed for thousands of years. But now they faced an enemy they could not see. An enemy they could not identify. And an enemy they had unknowingly carried with them. Chapter 9. The expedition abandoned. The illness did not improve. Despite rest, despite water, despite every attempt by the expedition to provide care, Dane Mercer and Torin Hale continued to deteriorate. The explorers who had entered the deepest sections of the facility were the first affected. At the time, the connection was not understood. The expedition had no knowledge of invisible hazards, no understanding of ancient containment systems, no reason to believe that a forgotten structure could still pose a danger after thousands of years. They believed they were dealing with an unknown illness, nothing more. Then the others began showing symptoms. Members of the expedition who had entered the tunnels started reporting similar problems. The metallic taste in the air, the weakness, the nausea, the shaking. The same illness that had taken hold of the first two explorers was spreading. The expedition had become divided. 6 members were now sick. 4 remained capable of caring for them. The discovery that had brought them together had become the source of their greatest danger. The team attempted to understand what had happened. They reviewed their actions. They examined their supplies. They considered every possibility. But the answer remained hidden. The facility offered no explanation. The stone plate offered no explanation. The ancient machines surrounding them offered no explanation. The expedition had found a place filled with knowledge, but they lacked the knowledge required to understand the threat. Days passed. The condition of the sick explorers worsened. The strongest among them began struggling to stand. The weakest could no longer move without assistance. The expedition members who remained healthy pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. They cared for their companions. They gathered water. They prepared food. They searched for any sign of improvement. But there was none. Then the first death occurred. Dane Mercer, engineer and explorer of ancient structures, became the first member of the Eastern Survey expedition to die. The team recorded his death in silence. There was no celebration, no discovery ceremony, no return home. Only the realization that the mission had changed forever. Captain Elias Voss gathered the remaining members. The decision was made. They would leave. The facility would remain unexplored. The artifact would not remain behind. The knowledge they had hoped to recover would have to wait. Survival was now the only objective. The expedition began preparing for departure. They abandoned nearly everything. Heavy tools, excavation equipment, research materials. Anything that slowed their movement was left behind. The discoveries they had spent months searching for were no longer important. They carried only what they needed to survive: food, water, medical supplies, and the people who could still walk. The expedition that had arrived at the hill with 10 explorers searching for the secrets of the ancients now left with a much simpler goal: reach home and warn others. They walked away from the sealed door. They walked away from the facility. They walked away from the greatest discovery of their lives. None of them knew if they would ever return. None of them knew if anyone would ever understand what happened beneath the hill. The Eastern Survey expedition had failed in its original mission. But the journey home had only just begun. Chapter 10. The road home. The Eastern Survey Expedition departed from the hill with 9 surviving members. They left behind the facility. They left behind the excavation site. They left behind the discovery they had spent months searching for. The journey that had taken 113 days to complete would now become a race against time. The expedition members knew the return journey would be difficult, but they also knew something important. They no longer carried the weight that had slowed them before. The heavy excavation equipment was abandoned. The research materials were left behind. The tools that had once represented discovery were now unnecessary. Their only objective was survival. The first challenge was moving the critically ill. Tor and Hale had become too weak to walk. The remaining explorers worked together to create a stretcher. Using available materials, they constructed a simple method of transportation. It was uncomfortable. It was difficult, but it allowed them to continue. 2 explorers carried at a time. The others rotated whenever exhaustion became too great. The expedition moved slowly. Every mile required effort. Every rest period became shorter. Every decision became more important. For 3 days, they continued. Tor, an explorer, grew weaker. The others refused to leave him behind. They had already lost too much. They would carry him as far as they could. But on the 3rd day of the journey home, the expedition suffered another loss. Tor and Hale died. There was no time for a proper ceremony. No time to return the body home. The remaining explorers marked the location as best they could. They recorded the coordinates. They promised that someday, someone would return. Then they continued east. The loss changed the expedition. There were now 8 explorers remaining, but the lighter supplies allowed them to move faster. Much faster. The same landscapes that had challenged them on the way toward the hill now passed beneath their feet more quickly. The rocky desert, the plains, the forests. They crossed familiar ground with desperate determination. They no longer stopped to study the environment. They no longer recorded discoveries. They no longer searched for signs of the ancients. They measured only distance. How far they had traveled. How far remained. The explorers survived on what they could carry. And when those supplies began to disappear, they relied on the land itself. They gathered edible plants. They searched for small animals and insects. They used whatever food sources required the least energy to obtain. Their journey became one of endurance, not exploration, not research, survival. For a time, hope returned. They had traveled farther than expected. They had moved faster than during the original journey. The settlement was getting closer. The 4 healthiest members of the expedition believed they might succeed. They believed they might return. They believed they might still tell the world what they found. But the illness had not disappeared. It had only been delayed. After traveling approximately 150 miles from the facility, the remaining explorers began to notice changes. The weakness, the fatigue, increasing aches and pain, the symptoms that had taken their companions. The expedition members looked at one another. they were carrying it with them. Chapter 11. 3 miles from salvation. The remaining expedition members continued toward home. Those who entered the tunnels had slowly perished, one after the other. But the distance was no longer the greatest obstacle. The illness had reached the remaining 4 survivors. The team who had cared for their companions. The group who had carried the wounded. The explorers who had continued when they believed they had no strength left. They were now experiencing the same symptoms. Weakness, nausea, loss of coordination. The same signs that had taken the others. Less than 25 miles from their settlement, the expedition members understood the truth. They were running out of time. The remaining members gathered together and made their final decision. They could not continue as a group. If they stayed together, none of them would reach home. If even one person survived, help could be sent. A rescue party could be organized. The others could be found. Their story could be told. It was not a choice anyone wanted to make, but it was the only choice they had. The expedition continued. One by one, they reached the point where they could no longer move forward. Each team member was left with water and the promise that help was coming. Each location was marked. Each person was remembered. The journey that had begun with 10 explorers had become a single person walking towards civilization. The final survivor continued alone. Every step became an effort. Every movement required concentration. But the settlement was close. The wilderness was behind him. The trade roads were ahead. The sounds of civilization were almost within reach. After months of travel, after crossing hundreds of miles, after losing everyone who had started the journey beside him, he finally reached a familiar path, a road used by merchants and travelers, a road that connected distant settlements, a road that could lead him home. But fate had one final obstacle. The settlement was only 3 miles away. 3 miles. A distance that should have been nothing. A distance that, under different circumstances, could have been crossed in less than an hour. But the expedition member collapsed on the roadside. He had traveled as far as his body would allow. He had carried the knowledge of the expedition. He had carried the hope that someone would learn what happened beneath the hill. But he could go no farther. The road continued without him. Travelers passed through the region. The world moved forward, and the final member of the Eastern Survey expedition remained unseen. 2 weeks passed. The expedition was considered missing. Rumors spread. Some believed the explorers had chosen not to return. Others believed they had been lost somewhere beyond the frontier. No one knew the truth. Then, a merchant traveling the trade route discovered the body. The merchant recognized the signs of an expedition member. Near the remains were 2 protected items, a journal, and a circular granite stone plate marked with 3 triangles. The merchant understood immediately that he had found something important. He returned to the settlement as quickly as possible. The lost expedition had finally been found. Not alive, but not forgotten. The explorers had failed to return home, but they had succeeded in leaving behind a record that would reveal the greatest discovery of their age and the greatest danger left behind by the ancients. Chapter 12. The Shadow That Returned. The discovery of the final expedition member brought answers, but it also brought a new mystery. The Eastern Survey expedition had not simply disappeared. They had returned. Their remains had been found. Their journal had been recovered. Their final artifact had been preserved. The settlement believed the tragedy had ended. They were wrong. The first signs appeared among the members of the recovery team. Those who had traveled to locate the explorers began reporting unusual symptoms: weakness, nausea, shaking, a metallic taste. The same illness described in the expedition journal. At first, the cases seemed unrelated. The recovery team members had traveled through harsh conditions. They had spent days in the wilderness. They had handled remains that had been exposed to the elements. But as more people became sick, a pattern emerged. Everyone affected had one thing in common. They had come into contact with the lost expedition. Some had recovered the bodies. Some had transported the remains. Some had examined the equipment and belongings recovered from the explorers. Others had attended the cremation ceremony. The illness had returned with them. Fear spread through the settlement. The recovered materials were isolated. The expedition journal was sealed away. The granite plate was placed under observation. The people of the settlement finally understood something important. The expedition had not simply been lost. It had brought something back. A second investigation was organized. This time, the explorers did not approach the hill as archaeologists searching for knowledge. They approached it as investigators searching for answers. Protective equipment was used. Samples were collected. Every step was carefully recorded. When they reached the facility, they found the entrance created by the original expedition. The sealed door, the eroded circular symbol, the passage dug into the darkness. But this time, they continued deeper. They followed the path of the original explorers. They entered the chamber beneath the hill. They studied the broken equipment. They examined the tunnels, not knowing they wouldn't make it home. And slowly, the truth began to emerge. The facility was not a temple. It was not a research archive. It was not a forgotten city. It was something else entirely. containment site, a place built by the ancients to isolate dangerous materials. Deep beneath the hill, they discovered evidence of a forgotten technology. Storage systems, warning markings, records that describe materials created during an age far beyond the understanding of the Second Age. The explorers had not uncovered a treasure. They had opened a vault, a nuclear waste storage facility from the time of the ancients. The strange air, the metallic taste, the sickness, the corrosion, the sealed door, everything finally had an explanation. The original expedition had unknowingly entered a place designed to remain untouched. The builders had understood the danger. They had created barriers, warnings, containment systems. But thousands of years had passed. The meaning of those warnings had been forgotten. The lost expedition of 2573 became the first recorded disaster caused by the forgotten dangers of the ancients. The explorers had not failed because they were careless. They had failed because they discovered something their world no longer had the knowledge to understand. Beneath the hill was not a message from the past. It was a responsibility left behind. A reminder that the ancients had created wonders, but they had also created dangers that could survive far longer than their civilization itself. The expedition had searched for the remains of a lost world. Instead, they found one of its final warnings. Chapter 13. The Lesson of 2573. The Eastern Survey Expedition was recorded as one of the greatest tragedies of the Second Age. 10 explorers departed beyond the known frontier. 10 explorers entered the wilderness searching for the remains of the ancients. None returned alive, and dozens of residents of their settlement became very ill. 9 died. Only 3 members of the following investigation team would return alive. But the expedition was not remembered as a failure. It became a lesson. Before 2573, humanity looked at the ruins of the ancients with curiosity. The forgotten world was viewed as a collection of lost knowledge, including machines, structures, and technologies that revealed fragments of a civilization that had existed long before. Every discovery was considered a gift from the past. The lost expedition changed that understanding forever. The ancients had left behind more than wonders. They had left behind consequences. The hill in the middle of the plain became a symbol of that truth. It became a place where curiosity had opened a door that should have remained closed, and where the knowledge of the past became a danger to the future. After the investigation was completed, the facility was sealed again. This time, the warnings were understood. The entrance was marked. The location was documented. Future generations would know what existed beneath the hill. The circular granite plate with 3 triangles was preserved. For many years, scholars studied the symbol. Eventually, they understood its purpose. It was not a message of power. It was not a symbol of ownership. It was a warning. A simple message from the ancients, created for a future they knew might one day forget. The Journal of Brother Aldrin became one of the most important historical records of the Second Age. It documented not only the discovery, but also the choices made by the explorers, their courage, their dedication, and their final attempt to return home. The members of the Eastern Survey Expedition were remembered in the historical records. The expedition was led by Captain Elias Voss and included Dr. Lyra Kalin, Engineer Dane Mercer, Pattern Specialist Torrin Hale, Soren Ash, Mira Kestrel, Cale Rowan, Garrick Stone, Brother Aldrin, and Nessa Vale. They were not remembered because they uncovered the secrets of the ancients. They were remembered because they faced the unknown without understanding the danger. They entered the darkness searching for knowledge, and even in their final moments, they tried to bring that knowledge home. Centuries later, the Infinite Archive preserved the complete record of the expedition. The journey, the discovery, the loss, the investigation, and the lesson. The archive entry concludes with a final statement preserved for future generations. The ancients built cities that touched the heavens. They created machines that changed the world. They unlocked powers beyond imagination. But their greatest lesson was not what they created. It was what they warned us to leave untouched. The Eastern Survey Expedition of 2573 ended in tragedy. But their story endured, because every generation that followed remembered the same truth. The past is not only a place to discover, it is also a place to learn from. End archive entry.